Welcome to This Guy's Sports Talk. Let's get started. Here is your host, Baldeesh Singh.
Welcome back to an episode of This Guy's Sports Talk. I'm your host, your favorite host, Baldeesh Singh. And just so we can create the biggest sports community in the world, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. And let's get started. So I have the honor and privilege of introducing you to one of my closest friends in the world, Robbie. He's actually been able to work for a couple, sports franchises, more recently the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's actually been able to accomplish quite a lot in the sports world, and I'm really excited to have him share with you guys. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Robbie Poulain. Go ahead, welcome on, brother.
Thanks for having me, Baldeesh. It's always great talking football with you. We can go on for hours, and hopefully we do just that.
For sure, man. I remember when you were down in Oklahoma City, and I would literally call you maybe like every few days, and we would literally have 3-hour phone conversations, literally just talking about sports. And I don't think there was another guy that I was actually able to do that with. And so I don't know. I think that's pretty impressive. But I know recently there was a lot of offseason moves in the NFL being made, even a couple months ago, even though free agency just started a couple weeks ago. I know you ended up coming up with a top 10 list of the NFL offseason moves. I ended up coming up with the list as well. We ended up collaborating recently, and I think, I think the list is pretty spot on. I guess we'll let the viewers decide what they think. But at number 10, we have the Kansas City Chiefs shoring up their offensive line. They ended up signing a big old free agent, Joe Thuney, coming from the New England Patriots. I know he was, I think worst case scenario, he's a top 5 guard, but I surely believe he's a top 3 guard in the NFL. You guys ended up, signing Kyle Long, who came out of retirement. He did battle some injuries a little bit, towards the end of, or I guess before he retired, towards the end of his career, before coming out of retirement. But, he was a consistent Pro Bowler as well. And then I know you have a couple of rookie linemen coming back that ended up opting out from a year ago. So what do you think about, the signings of Joe Thuney and your boy Kyle Long?
Sure. So for years, it seems like the Chiefs have kind of, they've been able to plug and play whatever lineman they have on their team. They've had injuries and it hasn't mattered. And so going into the Super Bowl, I think most Chiefs fans, despite Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz being out, LDT being out at the right guard position, Kelechi Osemele being out at the left guard position, they kind of expected it to just work. I mean, it seems like it doesn't matter who's in there, and we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. It did not work.
Right.
Whether that was the distractions with Britt Reed, I don't exactly know, but it was tough to watch. And so I think obviously the number one move for the Chiefs, the 2-time defending AFC champs, going into this offseason, was just to shore up that offensive line. And they went out and they got one of the best linemen, probably the second best lineman available in free agency, I would say, after Trent Williams,
right.
Joe Thuney. Had they gotten Trent Williams,
oh my gosh, it would have been a wrap.
Not necessarily Durant going to the Warriors level,
right?
But it would have been, significant. But I think obviously, like Joe Thuney, even though he's a guard, not a tackle, it's a good signing. He, like you said, he's potentially a top 3 guard in the NFL when he's playing well. And then, going out and getting Kyle Long, a guy who was a perennial Pro Bowler there for a few years, and you can kind of plug him in. And then getting Lucas Niang, the rookie from 2020 who opted out back, who can play both tackle positions. I think they might try to test him out at left tackle since they re-signed Mike Rimmers, and they plan on putting him at right tackle.
I've heard a lot of hype about that guy.
Yeah, he was the 3rd-round pick in 2020. I think the Chiefs viewed him as a huge steal in the draft.
Yeah.
Hopefully he would be able to fill in for some guys, and so hopefully he gets a starting nod this year. If not, at least they added some depth on the O-line.
Honestly, it was kind of, I don't know, it was really strange towards the end of the year because I just feel like you guys kind of had freak injuries. The whole thing with Britt Reed ended up happening. Eric Fisher, Mitchell Schwartz. It just kind of, it was just like really bad timing with those injuries and that particular situation that occurred a week prior to the Super Bowl with Britt Reed. But I don't know, man. It sounds like they're really beefing up the interior offensive line. They're bringing back a couple rookies from a year ago. So honestly, with Patrick Mahomes' quick release, his high IQ, as long as you guys don't have any freak injuries down the year, I think you guys will be perfectly fine.
It's football. The injuries always happen.
For sure. That's why.
But just having depth would be huge, honestly.
For sure, for sure. And then speaking of the Kansas City Chiefs, the 49ers, we actually ended up slotting them at number 9 with all the key free agents they ended up re-signing. The biggest free agent that they ended up re-signing was Trent Williams. He is I don't know, he is a little bit older. He is 32 years old. I guess a lot of people would say he is the best left tackle in the NFL. I'd say he's the best pass protector in regards to being the left tackle, and I'd probably rank him number 3 when it comes to run blocking. And then we ended up signing up Kyle Juszczyk, Jason Verrett, Kwan Williams, Emmanuel Mosley. I don't know. I think with Trent Williams coming back, Jimmy Garoppolo's always struggled with injuries. And so having Trent Williams there for 6 years, and I think he'll end up becoming like an Andrew Whitworth and like a Jason Peters, where they're actually playing into their late 30s instead of just, by the age of like 34, 35, they're completely done. So signing Trent Williams was an absolute must just because we have the most fragile quarterback in the NFL with Jimmy Garoppolo. But signing Kyle Juszczyk, man, was also a huge signing as well. He's literally like an Army Swiss knife, with a trickeration that Kyle Shanahan loves to do. He can put him out in the slot. He could put him in the backfield. He can literally put him on the line as well. They can literally do whatever they want with Kyle Juszczyk. And it was funny. He ended up signing the biggest contract for a fullback, his last deal, and then he just did it again with this new deal that he just had. So I don't know. I think with Trent Williams coming back, we got Jimmy Garoppolo back healthy. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt again. We have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. So a lot of key pieces that are coming back. As long as we don't have any freak injuries, I think the 49ers will be fine. I'm not exactly sure who's going to win the NFC West, just because the NFC West is so jam-packed. You got Russell Wilson on the Seahawks, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. Now you got Matt Stafford, which we'll probably end up talking about later down the road. But and now you got Jimmy Garoppolo. I know we ended up trading up to the 3rd spot. I'm not exactly sure who we're going to end up drafting, though. So I know it sounds like Trevor Lawrence is a lock for number 1. Zach Wilson is a lock for number 2, it sounds like. And then I'm not really sure, man. Mac Jones, Trey Lance seems more like a project to me. And then Justin Fields, Ohio State quarterbacks, they've just never, succeeded in the NFL. So I'm not exactly sure. But obviously they would have moved up to number 3 if they weren't sure on who they were going to get. So I guess we'll just kind of see what happens there. But yeah, Trent Williams, it was interesting. He actually almost ended up signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you know what may have happened there by any chance? Or it was just, I guess, completely maybe a money issue?
So the rumor was that he had basically he was ready to sign with the Chiefs. I know that he had a close relationship with the Shanahans, having played for Mike in Washington and then playing for Kyle in San Francisco.
Right.
And so, I think they had Thanksgivings together. Like they were really tight. And so when the Chiefs made that offer, I think Trent's camp was really surprised that the Chiefs had that kind of money to offer. And so then he went to the Shanahans and said, hey, I need you to match this or I'm probably gone. And
right.
At the end of the day, I think the Niners were able to outbid the Chiefs. Obviously the Chiefs, I don't know how they do it with cap space. Veach is a genius, but they were able to almost grab him. But at the end of the day, the Niners got him. And I'm sure the Niners are glad, because if that team has a healthy full roster, then it could be another Super Bowl year, or if they had the injuries they had last year, it could be another 6-win season. But
for sure,
you mentioned Kyle Juszczyk. It's really interesting how Kyle Shanahan uses him. Just you've never seen a fullback make that kind of money in the NFL, but if you watch the way the Niners play, like he's so versatile and such a huge part of their offense, it makes sense why they decided to pay him.
Yeah, he's a big part of that offense, and whenever he does miss games, the offense definitely feels it. So at number 8, we ended up slotting the New York Giants. So they ended up making, a mini splash in free agency as well. They ended up signing Kenny Golladay, the number 1 wide receiver from the Detroit Lions. Kyle Rudolph, who was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in the first round. They ended up signing Adoree Jackson, cornerback from Tennessee, which they ended up releasing. I'm not exactly sure why. Probably a cap issue, but John Ross, they get some speed on their offense from the Bengals. Complete first round bust. And they ended up signing Mike Glennon. I don't know if he was kind of brought there to mentor them, but I don't know. I think with the New York Giants signing all these free agents, it just kind of feels like, hey, Daniel Jones, this is your final year. If you can't put it together, we're going to move on. And we're proving to you right now that this offense does work. And they end up getting Kenny Golladay. Now you got Sterling Shepard. You have Darius Slayton. You have Evan Ingram. You have Kyle Rudolph. Saquon Barkley is coming back. And I'm sure he'll be 100% healthy just because he did end up tearing his ACL in week 2. So that gives him more than enough time to, come back from injury and play again. But what do you think about the New York Giants with all these offseason moves that they're making?
Sure. I know you mentioned mostly offense. They did re-sign Leonard Williams on the
That's
defensive
right.
side. Him and Blake Martinez were huge parts of their defense last year. And the Giants, honestly, they had that little stretch towards the end of the year where it looked like they might take the NFC East. Their defense really carried them down that stretch. So I kind of expect their defense to even take it a step further. But like you said, offensively, they've given Daniel Jones everything they have. And as an Evan Ingram fantasy owner last season,
Oh my
I was
God.
incredibly frustrated at the inconsistency of Danny Dimes.
Yeah.
So hopefully adding, a Kenny Golladay who had a huge year in Detroit last year. Hopefully getting Saquon back, opening things up. We saw what Saquon did his rookie year.
Yeah.
It really just hasn't been the same, whether it be he's just too powerful for his own body to handle, and somehow it takes a toll on him. But excited to see what the Giants could do offensively this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think nowadays you have these quarterbacks that end up having success in their first year. So Daniel Jones had his rookie year. He had his second year. Now this is his third year. If he doesn't make it work this year, Dave Gettleman, I don't know. I think he might get let go because I feel like he should have got let go a couple years ago when you signed Odell Beckham Jr. to such a big contract. Then you say, hey, we wouldn't have signed this guy if we were going to trade him, and then you end up trading the guy. So I guess, we'll end up seeing what happens with the New York Giants with Kenny Golladay. Would you draft any wide receivers from the New York Giants? Do you trust Danny Dimes that much, or?
I'm trying to think. Galladay would probably go before anybody else.
Yeah.
Because Darius Slayton, he had a good year last year.
Yeah.
But he had a hot start to the season. I don't know if you would draft him in your top, 4 or 5 fantasy rounds. Most likely.
Absolutely.
I would take Galladay, round 3 or 4, maybe. Probably not 3, more like 4 or 5. But
probably 4 or 5.
Yeah. It's tough to imagine because if you take a guy like even Evan Ingram, for example, and you place him in a competent offense, like let's say you place him in Tennessee or Kansas City or Baltimore, or the Rams, like he might put up 1,000-yard season and have 8 touchdowns. Like it just seems like the Giants have all these weapons, and hopefully Daniel Jones can prove everybody wrong. But I mean, this the clock is ticking on him, frankly.
For sure. So number 7, we ended up putting Dak Prescott, the longest soap opera in the NFL over the last 2 years. So there was a battle between Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott, got franchised the first time around, got franchised the second time around. But it sounds like this time around, Jerry Jones finally lost a negotiation and ended up signing Dak Prescott to a 4-year deal. I know Jerry Jones really wanted to sign him to a 5-year deal, but Dak is gonna reel in so much freaking money, dude. He signed this 4-year contract, and as soon as the contract is actually up, there's actually gonna be new TV money available as well. So when he signs back up again, it's just gonna be completely insane. And then plus he's got the sponsorships. I have to eventually get the same bed that he sleeps on because it just looks like he's having a good time. But with Dak Prescott re-signing with the Cowboys, where do you see the Dallas Cowboys finishing in the NFC East standings?
Yeah, that's a great question. We both saw how Dak started the year out last year. He was as hot as any quarterback in the league throughout the first. I can't remember if he got injured week 4 or 5, somewhere around there, but
Okay,
he was putting up monster
he
numbers, and the
was.
defense was just, not letting him go. But the Giants getting him under contract, or Giants, Cowboys,
Yeah,
NFC East, NFC least, uh,
right.
get, getting him under contract, I think was huge. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys this year?
I don't know, man. So they still have Amari Cooper. I don't know. I think when I think about the Cowboys, man, I just think there's a bunch of overpaid prima donnas, man. Like DeMarcus Lawrence, the guy has not lived up to $20 million a year. Amari Cooper has not lived up to $20 million a year. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't exactly lived up to his contract either. So I don't know, man. I just think that they have like a very, very, I don't know what the word is, but a very relaxed culture. And I think a lot of that just has to do with Jerry Jones. He's kind of like the new age Al Davis, where he's just kind of doing what he wants. He's not allowing a head coach to actually empower his own players. I guess whenever the players do have an issue, they end up going back to the owner instead of the head coach, such as Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett literally had no power. He was known as Clap Coach or Coach Clap or whatever his nickname was. But I don't know, man. I think with the New York Giants, Joe Judge having like a legitimate offseason, um, then Ryan Fitzpatrick signing with the Washington football team. The Eagles seem like they're a mess. I don't know, man. It sounds like they got a lot of great pieces on offense. It's just their defense is what scares me the most. But as long as they're able to put up points, they should always be in the fight. I don't know. Right now, it's kind of hard to say. I'll probably have a better idea after the draft, but I'm probably going to put the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys right now kind of neck and neck, and we'll just kind of, I don't know, who do you think is going to win the division?
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same thing. So if the Giants step up offensively, they could certainly win the division, especially if it's as competitive as it was last season. But
Yeah,
last season you didn't have Dak. This
right,
season you have Dak, and so whether he's not his old self because of the injury, hopefully that's not the case because the Cowboys' offense is a lot of fun to watch when Dak is himself. He's never had a full season with CeeDee Lamb yet. CeeDee Lamb can take some pressure off Amari Cooper, which opens things up for Zeke, and their
right,
offensive line is still pretty solid. So, I mean, the Cowboys, I think, even if the Giants improve offensively, I still think it's the Cowboys' division to lose. And, I don't necessarily like the Cowboys. I know there's a lot of Cowboys haters out
right.
there, but if you're a Cowboys fan, this should be a good sign for you. I would be excited. Maybe it's not Super Bowl or bust, but I mean, I think they could legitimately get to the NFC Championship game with this roster.
For sure. I mean, they got Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. How nuts would it be? Because right now they're slotted at the 10th spot in the NFL draft. How insane would it be if they ended up getting Kyle Pitts? Even though they should probably spend that draft pick on the defense, just like last year. But I don't know. Jerry Jones will see if he makes another pick from his yacht with his nieces and nephews. But I don't know, man. I definitely think it is. Yeah, I think the Giants definitely made some interesting moves on the offensive side of the ball. They already have an elite defense, especially signing a Dory Jackson. Jamal Bradbury ended up coming up really big last year as well. So, yeah, man, you're going to go with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm kind of neck and neck. It's just the Cowboys have the talent. It's just, I don't know what doesn't click for them. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I could be completely wrong and have my foot in my mouth by the end of the year. We always look at these standings and we go, okay, for sure this team's going to finish here, and we
Right.
get proven wrong every year. Who would have thought Washington was going to win the NFC
Oh my
East?
gosh. Who would have thought Alex Smith was going to come back?
Yeah, that was the worst team in the division going into the year, and everybody knew it. And granted, it was not a normal year in the division, but you just didn't
No.
expect that.
Yeah, and come to find out, Ron Rivera and the whole front office didn't even want Alex Smith to come back. So that was a interesting story of its own. But at
Come
number,
to KC, come home,
right,
Alex.
49. That's funny, man. The Niners and the Kansas City Chiefs have such an interesting relationship when it comes to like trades and free agency and the draft and whatnot. But so at number 6, we ended up slotting QB number 1, Andy Dalton for the Chicago Bears. And I actually like Andy Dalton, man. He actually accomplished quite a lot. He was what? He went to TCU. He ended up getting drafted by the Bengals. And I believe in his first 4 years, they actually had 10 plus wins each of those years. They ended up going to the playoffs. Whenever you have Marvin Lewis as your head coach, you know you're not going to win any playoff games. So, but Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, he's got the short and intermediate throws down. He doesn't really have a deep arm that much. But it's, I don't know. To me, it just kind of sounds like Nagy and Pace just kind of signed Andy Dalton out of desperation when they couldn't get Russell Wilson. It's like they just didn't have any better options. They're too high in the draft. Them getting into the playoffs actually hurt them in the draft. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me why Andy Dalton got signed by the Chicago Bears. They could have surely done better, don't you think?
Yeah, isn't it crazy to think that the Chicago Bears were in the playoffs last season? I mean, people forget they just lost the Nickelodeon MVP Mitch Trubisky.
They did,
and that's why we're talking about Andy Dalton. Mitch Trubisky, the only quarterback to ever lose a playoff game and be named MVP of something. It's crazy.
Nickelodeon.
I don't even know what the award was called. I'm probably getting it wrong, but I thought that was hilarious. But shout out to whoever is the graphic designer for the Chicago Bears that did that jersey swap of Andy Dalton. That was clean. The caption, not so clean.
Not so
QB1.
clean.
I mean, they did get a lot of media attention for that caption. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. I think maybe that's what they were. I mean, maybe they think they can do something with Andy Dalton. I know Matt Nagy is an up and coming offensive mind in the NFL, and he has been for some time.
Yeah.
I think we kind of don't realize how bad Mitch Trubisky has been at times and how limiting the Bears have been on offense. Maybe Andy Dalton, from a football IQ perspective, is a step up for Mitch Trubisky.
Right.
And Allen Robinson finally has a quarterback that can get him the ball the way Dalton got the ball to AJ Green for so long. They're kind of similar receivers, big build, possession receivers. But obviously, this was a move that, like you said, they made out of desperation. They pushed all the chips in for Russell Wilson and ended up with nothing. And you can't blame them. I mean, they did offer the Seahawks a lot. I just think it was a situation where the Seahawks said, this is Russell Wilson's our franchise.
Right.
We're not just going to give him up for a bunch of picks. Like, you can do that with some players, but some, like, Mahomes could not be traded for, you couldn't trade 10 first-round picks for the guy.
I was literally about to say 10 first-round picks. Yeah, there isn't. You can't equate any kind of draft asset or players for the value of Patrick Mahomes. It's just you can't quantify it. It's just crazy. Also, the greatest Chicago Bears quarterback is Jay Cutler statistically, and I don't understand how a franchise that's been around as long as they've been around. I mean, it's just as long as, the Green Bay Packers around that same time. And the greatest quarter, I really don't know why they have had such bad. I feel like even the blind squirrel finds the nut, but for some reason the Chicago Bears, I don't know, man. They just, Jay Cutler, Sid Luckman. I'm trying to think of other names. I mean, freaking Rex Grossman led him to a Super Bowl. I mean, I wouldn't say the defense led him to a Super Bowl, but it's like they've had, kryptonite in the city of Chicago when it comes to selecting a quarterback in the draft, free agency, or in trades. It just I don't know. It's never worked out for him for some reason.
You're missing the only man that's ever won a Super Bowl under center.
McMahon. Oh my gosh. Good old.
No, it's weird because the Bears. It seems like they've arguably had more great running backs than any team in the history of the league. I mean, you talk about Red Grange, you talk about Gale Sayers,
Walter
Payton, Matt Forte, even in the 2000s. Like, they've been like the equivalent of running back U in the NFL, but they've kind of swapped that for having decent quarterback play. So maybe this feels like a team that ends up with losing record. I don't see this team being in the playoffs unless they somehow prove me wrong and they go all in and they find something from Andy Dalton that works. But I think this team should, probably blow it up, win between 2 and 6 games, and try to shoot for a top 5, top 10 pick next year, and maybe find your franchise quarterback and don't draft Mitch Trubisky again.
Yeah, I'm really scared for Andy Dalton, man. I don't know. I'm a little bit of a fan of his just because he did get selected in the second round by the Bengals, and he ended up leading them to the playoffs the first 4 years. I was like, All right, this is cool. This is awesome, man. I'm really rooting for you. I'm just really scared of that Chicago crowd just tearing him apart, man. Because I know he's such a nice guy, man. But I don't know. It just I feel
The
like
Bear the Bears crowd isn't usually that bad, right? They're not Philly. I mean,
yeah, I mean
are they
Philly,
bad?
Chicago's pretty intense, man. They definitely don't play around with their. I mean, the East Coast sports fans, those are the nuttiest sports fans in the world. Freaking Patriots fans, Philly, even in the NBA, man. It's just yeah, the Patriots, right?
No, just the Northeast fans specifically. Specifically Philly fans. Shout out Philly fans for being the worst fans in all
Oh my
sports.
yeah. So Andy Dalton with the Chicago Bears. Yeah, they'll probably win between 4 to 6 games. Yeah, we'll see what happens with them. At number 5, we got the Arizona Cardinals. So they ended up signing J.J. Watt. They signed A.J. Green, Malcolm Butler, Rodney Hudson, the Pro Bowl center from the Oakland Raiders. They've actually made, 4 big veteran free agent moves. I guess in a way they're replacing Patrick Peterson, who went to the Minnesota Vikings, with Malcolm Butler. He's kind of had issues with injuries over the past few years, but when he is healthy, he's a great player. AJ Green just kind of seemed like he just kind of gave up the last couple years. I don't even think he did play last year, but he didn't play the year before that. And then JJ Watt. Um, I don't know. It was kind of a confusing signing because I just didn't see the Arizona Cardinals actually signing him. They weren't even mentioned in any reports at all by Adam Schefter or any of those big names. But I just feel like they paid a lot of money for J.J. Watt, someone that's been injury prone over the past few years, hasn't exactly. I don't know. When's the last time he had like a 10 sack season? I can't even really
Right.
recall. I can't really recall, but they paid a lot of money for that man, and so I don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy this year. AJ Green hasn't been able to stay healthy. Malcolm Butler's not even been able to stay healthy. Rodney Hudson's going to be able to, I guess, shore up the interior of the offensive line. That'll definitely help out Kyler Murray. But I think it'll be interesting to see how the offense plays. They got DeAndre Hopkins on one side, AJ Green on the other. They got who's their running back? They end up letting go Kenyon Drake. It's
Yeah,
a
I don't
Chase
know who they
Edmonds.
have.
Chase Edmonds. He's more of a third down specialist, kind of a back. But yeah, man, it's like the Arizona Cardinals are desperate and trying to keep up with the NFC West.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake was a huge loss. I thought he was really productive for them last year. Good pickup by the Raiders having Drake and Josh as a running back
Oh,
tandem.
I didn't even think about that.
I didn't come up with that. That's been circulating all over Twitter and Reddit.
Robbie, you're such a humble man, not taking credit.
But I did want to bring up. I was looking at JJ Watt's stats.
Yeah,
So this guy has had one season since 2015 where he's had more than 10 sacks. It was 2018. He actually had a 16 sack year, which was really impressive. But the other years, 2016, 1.5, 2017, 0 sacks. 2019, 4 sacks, 2025 sacks. So you can see that his decline has gone down. Now, granted, JJ Watt is one of the greatest of all time at his position, you
yeah,
could argue, and he's been a game changer for the Texans his whole career. But at this point in his career, he's had a lot of big injuries, and I don't think this was a good contract. I think this was a contract that the Cardinals signed him to get some veteran leadership in there more than anything, which is something they need. So good for them for maybe that side of it. I don't think you're going to get the JJ Watt that you've experienced for so many years in Houston. And then the AJ Green signing was also very questionable. Watching the Bengals last year, I thought he really underperformed. It
he
looked like
did.
he was lost out there. He was dropping a lot of balls.
He didn't even seem like he wanted to
Maybe,
be out there in the first place. He signed.
yeah,
It's like he just signed that $18 million franchise tag, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna act like a complete buffoon on the field, collect my money, and just get out of here because I know you won't franchise tag me a second time.
right. I can't really blame him. I mean, he had been in Cincinnati so long; they had gotten so bad. Granted, he was playing with Burrow, who was pretty darn good before he got injured last
Yeah,
year, and maybe that'll change with Kyler. I mean, Kyler's played pretty well with Fitz, who's a similar build at wide receiver, just a lot older, and
yeah,
so maybe this could rejuvenate AJ Green's career the way we've seen some guys that have gotten stuck on one team for so long. That team goes through the cycle of winning and losing. They lose and then you get out of there and it's like you're rejuvenated. And finally the culture is reignited something in you that you didn't have before. And so I hope that that happens with AJ Green.
For sure. I think something that he really struggled with was I think he's kind of lost his ability a little bit in getting separation from the defensive backs. I know he's getting older, injuries are kind of piling up, and it's interesting. Him and Julio both came out of the same draft, and I think they were both selected in the top 10, right?
Yeah, I think so.
They were both selected in the top 10, and it's just interesting how AJ Green, he ended up having like his first 7 years in the NFL. He went for 1,000 yards. Same thing with Julio. And it's just crazy to think no one really talks about AJ Green that much just because, he is in Cincy and they haven't really been able to accomplish much. Haven't won a playoff game since I don't even know. I mean, the last time I can remember them being in the playoffs and like actually winning was when they played the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure they probably, won a playoff game since then, but that's kind of like the last time I think of the Bengals kind of being relevant. I mean, I know they had Carson Palmer with Rudy Johnson and Chad Ochocinco and TJ Hushmanzada, but with Marvin Lewis, they were never really able to win a playoff game. So they weren't. I don't know, man. Just AJ Green, just kind of feels like he's kind of a little. I mean, honestly, I'd rather have Larry Fitzgerald come back than have AJ Green.
Right. So I'm looking up. I was curious when their last playoff win was. So get this. It was January 6th, 1991. Were you born in 92, Baldy? I was born in
93.
94. 93. Okay. So we both have not been on this planet since the last time the Bengals won a playoff game. And granted, I'm a Chiefs fan. I know
Right.
all about rooting for NFL teams that go long periods of time without winning playoff games. So I feel for Bengals fans, seriously.
Right.
And at least the Bengals have been relevant lately, and they have been in the playoffs in a position. I know that Steelers game with the Vontaze Burfict hit on Antonio Brown was
That
a
was
crusher.
crazy.
That one, it really felt like that was the Bengals game to lose, and somehow they just wound up with a lot of bad luck that night. But it's unfortunate because Andy Dalton and AJ Green, they did put together a lot of great years in Cincinnati with Marvin Lewis, and they were never just able to win a playoff game, unfortunately.
Yeah, man, it's I don't know. I'm really I know we're not talking about the Bengals, but I'm rooting for Joe Burrow, man. That was such a nasty injury he had last year. But where do you think? I don't know. Where do you think the Arizona Cardinals finish up in the year in the NFC West?
It's tough to say. They were in first place at the NFC West for part of last season. I was a huge Cardinals fan, mostly because I had D Hop and Kyler Murray on my fantasy
Yeah,
team, and those guys carried me.
it was
But
interesting because the Arizona Cardinals, they started off 6-3, and they literally just had a complete meltdown and ended up finishing up at 8-8. I don't know. It's I think next year or this upcoming year will be the first time every single team from a division will make the playoffs. I think the Arizona Cardinals somehow squeak in by going 9-7. I think the Niners are too good not to be in next year as long as they're healthy. The Seahawks are going to be in. The Rams are going to be in. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna put out a bold prediction out there. I think the whole NFC West gets into the playoffs next year.
that's a bold prediction. That would be something.
That's
I
never
think the
yeah.
Cardinals regress personally. I think they dip down to 7 wins. I think Kingsbury gets fired, and I not hoping that Kingsbury gets fired, but I watched a few Cardinals games last year. I thought he really just has not been a good coach for them, and I'd like to see another play caller get in there. I do think he's kind of opened things up for Kyler, but just a lot of the little technical things in the NFL that you have to manage. I think he did a really poor job at last season specifically. So I'd love to see the Cardinals do well and get back into the playoffs. I think the NFL would be great seeing Kyler in the playoffs like that. There is not another player that's necessarily on his level of entertainment value at the quarterback
Yeah.
position besides maybe a Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson. Um, so I mean, for NFL fans' sakes, I hope that the Cardinals get back in there, and signing a couple of vets like this it's decent, but that they also lost some players. Like I know Patrick Peterson was getting older,
They
but
also
losing him
lost
is going to hurt.
Hassan Reddick, the outside linebacker, who ended up getting 13 and a half sacks last year, and he ended up signing a big old contract with the Carolina Panthers. So I guess, oh yeah, then they got Chandler Jones coming back as well. So I know he was out for the
Yeah,
whole year. So I guess J.J. Watt on one side, Chandler Jones on the other, and then A.J. Green pairing up with DeAndre Hopkins. Malcolm Butler replacing Patrick Peterson, Rodney Hudson shoring up the offensive line a little bit on the interior side. So, I don't know. I just we'll see what happens. It's the thing is like these veteran players that they ended up signing, they're injury prone. So I just hope they're able to stay healthy, especially when they just put up a 17 NFL season, 17 game NFL season. So hopefully their bodies can hold up, and we'll see what happens. But at number 4, man, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers re-signing a majority of their players. When it comes to Shaq Barrett, I did not think he was going to come back. Because of the big old contract that he signed, but somehow they were able to maneuver some money around with cap space. And Levante David, Rob Gronkowski, I can never pronounce that guy's last name correctly. Ryan Suckup, you know all about Ryan Suckup. Ndamukong Suh, they ended up franchise tagging Chris Godwin. I'm assuming they probably signed him to a long-term deal after this year, but this is the first team in NFL history to bring back all 22 starters from the previous year from the Super Bowl victory. I don't know the mathematics of how they were able to re-sign everybody, but it sounds like they pushed out a lot of money to the future to have all these guys back for the short term for right now.
Yeah, it's almost like they brought Brett Veach in from Kansas City and said, "Okay, get us deep under the cap, do what you did with the Chiefs," and that's exactly what happened. And the Bucs were able to pretty much bring almost everybody back, everybody that made a huge impact last season. It's their defense down the stretch in the playoffs was super exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Obviously, they matched up well against teams like the Packers and the Chiefs at the highest level, and they were pretty hard to stop. I don't know if there's a better front seven in the entire league when the Bucs are clicking
No.
on all cylinders. I will say I don't know if I expect them to get as far as they did last year. I think there was a lot on there was a bigger chip on Brady's shoulder last year than most years of his career because the whole narrative has always been, well, you've won in New England, you've won with Belichick, but
Right.
let's see what you do, with a different team. And obviously, like that, I don't think anybody gets fueled by criticism more than Tom Brady. I
Oh
think we've
no.
seen that throughout the years, and just with little indications that he gives at the end of his press conferences and interviews, you can tell that guy, everything that's ever been said about him, he just stores in the back of his brain and uses it as fuel. I love it personally, and I'm a Chiefs fan, but I can't hate Tom at all. But I do think that he had a lot of motivation going into last season, and I think it paid off. And obviously, there's nobody that's been more clutch in the playoffs than Tom. So I just don't see how the Bucs go as far this upcoming year as they did last year. I think they probably win the NFC South, but it's going to be tough getting by Green Bay again. It's going to be
Yeah.
tough getting by teams like the Rams if they start clicking on all cylinders with Stafford, if the 49ers get all their guys back healthy. Like the
Yeah.
NFC is still pretty tough.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think with the there isn't a better front seven. Honestly, nowadays to have a successful team make it deep into the playoffs, you need a quarterback. That's the number one position. Then you need a pass rush, which is what they also have, and you need an offensive line, which they drafted Tristan Wirfs from a year ago, and he was able to come in clutch for them as a rookie.
He's huge.
Yeah, he was absolutely huge. I don't know, man. I think they do make it. I don't know. I just, as much as I want the 49ers to come back and go to the Super Bowl, I could see the Buccaneers. Best case scenario, I think I see them back into the NFC Championship game. I don't think they win per se, but I could, I don't know, man. It's so hard to doubt Tom Brady, man. Like, who would have thought that this guy comes into his first year with Tampa Bay, no offseason, literally gets told by the park rangers to, hey, you can't practice here. You have to go home. Everything's literally virtual. And they struggled with a lot of their chemistry early on. They were what? I think at one point in time they were 7-4. No, they were 7-5. They were 7-5. And they ended up winning 8 games in a row and somehow found their consistent rhythm, which I really didn't. I thought they were going to fall out. I didn't even think they were going to make the playoffs last year, but somehow they ended up figuring it out. So I'm having a hard time going against Tom Brady as much as I want to, as much as the whole world wants to. But I can definitely see them being in the NFC championship game, and
There's been times where Tom Brady in his career, even in his prime, would get to a conference championship game, but he would lose. And I think you're spot on. I think they could get to a conference championship game again.
But that's probably best
It's
case
just,
scenario. That's what you think.
yeah, it just feels like there's bigger chips on the shoulders of players like Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford with the Rams. And, basically everybody in the 49ers wanted to get back. I think there's teams in the NFC that want it more right now.
Right.
It's hard to repeat in the NFL.
It
It's hard to
is.
even go back-to-back Super Bowls.
Just ask the
Um,
Seahawks with Russell Wilson throwing an interception. They definitely weren't able to recover, especially Richard Sherman and the whole legion of, boom. But, yeah, man, it is really hard to repeat. And, yeah, I mean, I think the best case scenario is probably the NFC Championship. And I don't know. Who do you think they might end up facing in the NFC Championship?
it's tough to say. Like we said earlier, we sit here every year and we go, well, how can it not be a Packers Bucks rematch in the
Right.
NFC Championship game? But we could be sitting here and, oh man, I can't believe we didn't see the Aaron Rodgers ACL injury.
Nobody
come
expected
in,
the Buffalo
Bryce
Bills to
Love
do
coming
what
in.
they did last year. The Buffalo Bills?
Exactly. Right, and you just never know which team is going to step up. It could be the Cardinals for all we know. It could be the Cowboys. Like there could be any number of random teams that kind of hit their stride like the Bills did last year and go far. But it's always interesting to see which teams decide to make that climb. If I had to bet on one team in the NFC to kind of make a step forward, I would have to pick the Rams, honestly. I feel
Yeah.
like what they got going on is pretty good, but it's that's just my 10 cents.
Well, speaking of the Rams, at number 2, we ended up having the Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford trade. Freaking huge move. I think this happened like 2 months prior to free agency even happening. Jared Goff gets sent to the abyss of Detroit. Matthew Stafford finally gets to go to a team that has experience with winning, which he's probably not used to hearing that word. I don't know. I think the LA Rams, they're absolutely stacked. They have Matthew Stafford at quarterback. They have Darrell Henderson. He's the backup. But Cam Akers came on huge last year as a rookie running back. They got Robert Woods. They got Cooper Kupp. And not a lot of people are really talking about this because he's kind of faded away over the past few years with injuries. But they also signed Deshaun Jackson as well. So he's somebody that can definitely stretch the field for them. Someone that's going to be able to get the deep ball. Because Robert Woods, he's lost a little bit of speed. He's getting a little older. Cooper Kupp, he's more of a slot receiver that's kind of running short to intermediate routes. But Deshaun Jackson going deep, and then Cam Akers having the ability to run the ball like he did last year, I think is going to be absolutely huge. Honestly, it could be the LA Rams and maybe the Buccaneers. I don't know. I just feel really bad for Matthew Stafford. I'm really rooting for the guy. The guy's had nothing but terrible luck with Detroit. I mean, if you're a rookie that gets drafted by Detroit, I would get a picket sign. I would I don't know. I would do whatever it takes not to go to that team, because if you get drafted by the Detroit Lions, your career will die. Just ask Calvin Johnson, just ask Barry Sanders, and ask Matthew Stafford. And then with Jared Goff, Kenny Galladay is gone now. They signed Tyrell Williams, who was the receiver for the San Diego, or I guess LA Chargers, then the Oakland Raiders, or the LA Raiders, and then all these teams switching around, man.
Las Vegas Raiders.
Las Vegas. Yeah, Las Vegas
Hey,
Raiders now.
The Raiders are the most popular team in LA, even still today, though. So you can call them the LA Raiders.
Yeah, man, it's just so many the St. Louis went to LA, which I don't think the Chargers should have even moved up to LA. I don't even think they have a legitimate fan base. I don't know what the Spanos were thinking.
The fan base is in San Diego. It's not in LA.
Yeah, but what did you think? Like, my mind was completely blown. I didn't even know you could make moves this early on in the year. But what did you think about the Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff trade?
It was really interesting. I love it from the Rams' perspective because you've got all these big contracts right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is the time to capitalize. Aaron Donald is still in his prime. He's still probably the best player in football.
I agree.
Let alone the best pass rusher in football. So, like, this is your chance. And they pushed all the chips in, and they said, we believe in Matthew Stafford to take us to that next level and get us back to the Super Bowl. Like, even Jared Goff got us to the Super Bowl. Granted, it There was a very questionable play in that NFC Championship game. I hate to bring that up,
I know. I feel so
yeah.
bad for the Saints fans, man. They just got screwed like what 3 years in a row.
Yeah, it's been tough. And that 2018 Saints team was absolutely, I mean, it seemed like they were destined to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And now, with Drew Brees retiring, it feels like the end. But let's get back to the Lions. So, shout out to every Lions fan that has stuck by this team for so long. Want to hear a fun fact?
What?
The Lions have won one playoff game since 1957. One.
That
I mean, that is unbelievable. Everybody talks about the Cleveland Browns as if their fans have had, nothing but crap
yeah.
to endure. Talk about the Lions, man. Like that's been pretty tough to live through if you're a Lions fan. And then, like you said, living through and seeing Barry Sanders play for your team, one of the greatest running backs of all time. Seeing Calvin Johnson play for your team, probably one of the 20 greatest receivers of all time, maybe 10 greatest receivers of all time. And just a lot of talent wasted. You only won one playoff game with Barry Sanders. You won none with Calvin Johnson. It's tough being a Lions fan. And now,
Yeah.
I mean, they did a lot in return for Stafford, though, getting those 2 first-round picks plus Goff back. Maybe they can turn Goff back into the player that the Rams thought they were taking when they took him number 1 overall 5 years ago. So, this is really interesting. I love it from the Rams' perspective. I think, pushing all the chips in and saying it's Super Bowl or bust for us is great. And I think that was the right move to make.
For sure. I think it's always a good idea for the NFL to have a team in LA doing well, and I think they definitely will do well. But Jared Goff, man, I think he's got Tyrell Williams, DeAndre Swift, he's an up and coming back. He had a really pretty good rookie year. TJ Hawkinson, he's kind of been having some issues with concussions. I can't even really think who their second wide receiver is. And if your number 1 wide receiver is Tyrell Williams, you are in big trouble.
They still have Hawkinson, right?
Yep, they do have Hawkinson. Yep, the tight end.
Yeah.
But he's been dealing with some concussion issues. But
and they had Marvin Jones. They lost Jones too.
Marvin Jones went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah.
Right. So they lost Galladay and Jones. Those were their 2 biggest receivers. You had Hawkinson, but he had injury problems. So like Swift was okay last year. I think he turned it on late in the season. But yeah, and then the head coach that the Lions hired, Dan Campbell. I mean,
we're gonna bite some kneecaps off, man. We're gonna bite some kneecaps off. I don't know. I this is gonna go either really, really well or it's gonna go really, really bad. And a lot of people are saying it's going to be really, really bad, especially when your head coach sounds like Mike Singletary, and he didn't end up doing very well with the 49ers.
Yeah, how often have we seen a coach that comes out here? Maybe Jim Harbaugh is the only one that comes to mind where it's and somehow the team succeeds. I mean, the day that Dan Campbell was up there giving his press conference, I remember stepping into the room and seeing him on TV and going, man, I can already envision the day getting the notification from Adam Schefter that Dan Campbell has been fired from the Detroit Lions. Like, it seems like it's going to come tomorrow. Maybe even before the season starts. Maybe before the draft. I mean, he just seems like a guy who's not going to last. He seems like and maybe this is going to end up on freezing cold takes. I hope it does. But it just seems like Dan Campbell was the bad hire to make, and I hope that Detroit figures it out for the sake of Lions fans, because they've been through enough crap the last half century. Like,
right.
Come on.
Yeah, I think Eric Bieniemy would have definitely been a better head coach. Honestly, I'm kind of glad he didn't end up getting the job with the Detroit Lions. I think he's better off probably sticking around with Kansas City, taking over Andy Reid. I mean, Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year contract. Andy Reid's not going to be able to be there for all 10 years. So I think him able to slide in and having continuity with Patrick Mahomes and the whole offense and the whole team, I think Eric Bieniemy just needs to stay in Kansas City, and I hope Kansas City Chiefs are kind of rooting for that as well. Would you be okay with having Eric Bieniemy as your head coach after Andy Reid?
No, Eric Bieniemy should stay in Kansas City, but drive west to Lawrence every day and go coach the Jayhawks. Just kidding. Nobody.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody should take the Kansas Jayhawks football coaching job.
Poor Les Miles. I feel like he kind of put that information out there about the whole, sexual harassing, students or whatever, just so he can get fired. Yeah. I mean, if I'm ridiculous. So we had Jared Goff and Stafford at number 2. Actually, oh crap. I can't believe we did. We skipped number 3. So we skipped Carson Wentz. So this is,
Yeah,
live. So
let's go back to that one.
we're not going to make any edits. We're just going to go off like this. So Carson Wentz, we're going back. Number 3, Carson Wentz being traded to the Indianapolis Colts. I think a lot of people saw this happening. We saw Frank Reich, with the Philadelphia Eagles. They ended up going, I think he went 11-2 before Carson wrecked his leg.
MVP front runner.
He was going to win MVP, and then Tom Brady ended up winning. I don't even think Tom Brady played a full 16-game season. I think that was the year where he got suspended for the first 4 games, I think.
That was the year after. I think this was 2017. The year that he missed the first 4 games was 2016.
That was 2016.
But they ended
Okay.
up winning the Super Bowl.
Right, you're right. And I think he won MVP. I know he was on the Madden cover for sure because I play the crap out of that. But Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts, man. I feel really bad for Carson and Philly, man. They literally had Nick Foles step in the playoffs, into the Super Bowl. They literally win their first championship. And I don't know, man. Carson Wentz, he seems really fragile. It sounds like he wasn't really able to get along with a lot of the players in the locker room. He had a lot of beef with Doug Peterson. There was a report out there that he actually didn't even talk to Doug Peterson for like 2 months, like 8 weeks, that there was no communication. They would just show up at practice and just kind of go from there. So, I don't know. I think it really messed with Carson Wentz's psyche where Nick Foles ended up stepping in, won the Super Bowl. And not only winning the Super Bowl, he won the Super Bowl MVP. And then they built a statue of this man. They built a statue of a backup quarterback and put that in their stadium. I don't know, man. I guess if I was Carson Wentz, I'd be pretty salty as well. You're literally going to build a statue of my backup quarterback, but you're the team that signed me to a long-term contract. I don't know. Philly's always been a little bit interesting. I think Carson Wentz, I'm really rooting for Carson Wentz, honestly. I hope he goes to Indianapolis, getting back with Frank Reich. I think they have quite a few weapons. They always have great depth at tight end. They always have Moelle Cox. I think they had Trey Burton, and then Jake Doyle. They have Jack
Doyle.
Yeah, Jack Doyle. Zach Pascal, I think. Or Pascal? Yeah, from Ohio State.
They brought T.Y. Hilton back.
They brought T.Y. Hilton back, and I'm a really big fan of Michael Pittman Jr. He was actually starting to come on a little bit last year as well, but they actually, a surprise signing was also Marlon back as well. But they have
their rookie running back,
Jonathan Taylor.
Wisconsin. Yeah, led the NFL in rushing last year, right?
I think the guy ended up blowing up for like 1,500 rushing yards. I definitely did not see that coming.
He didn't lead the league in rushing yards. He was
that was Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry led the league in rushing yards. I don't know what I was thinking.
But I think Jonathan Taylor did have 1,500 rushing yards, which was really surprising because you don't really see rookie running backs doing that nowadays. But with Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts, I'm really rooting for Carson. I think that he'll get some familiarity with the offensive playbook. And I don't know, man. I'm just I kind of got like a little bit of a soft spot just because I know Philly fans are freaking hardcore, and he pretty much just kind of got I don't know if he got booted because I know the GM really wanted to make it work. The head coach I don't know if the head coach really wanted to make it work. He put in Jalen Hurts in, but I don't know. I'm really rooting for the guy, and hopefully Carson. They're gonna make the playoffs, I think, next year. For sure. They got a good defense. They got the best offensive line in the NFL. They've got some decent weapons, and you insert Carson Wentz in. As long as he's able to overcome his mental hiccups, I think this is a match made in heaven and best case scenario for Carson.
Didn't they? They went like 10-6 last year, right? And they had the Bills who went to the AFC Championship game.
So they actually ended up going 11-5, and
11-5. That was it.
And the Tennessee Titans went 11-5 as well. I don't remember which one ended up winning the division though.
It was the Titans.
It was the Titans, yeah.
Yeah, because they hosted Baltimore and lost in that wild card round, and then the Colts went to Buffalo and they had the Bills on the ropes. That was a pretty close game, and that was with Phillip Rivers, who's been an interception machine the last couple of years. You replace him with Carson Wentz. Not saying Carson Wentz has been great the last couple of years. He's not been great at all. I thought part of that may be the wide receiver health issues that they've had.
The Eagles were never able to maintain any healthy players, man. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, where is that guy? Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, Miles Sanders was hurt, Zach Ertz was hurt, offensive line was battered, And
Yeah, the
so
only consistency they had there was Kelsey at center, and that was it. And everybody else, it's just been kind of a makeshift offensive line. So I do think Carson Wentz could return to that 2017 MVP form on the Colts, especially since they have their offensive line shored up
yeah,
and they have some weapons, and they have Frank Reich, who was calling the plays for Wentz back during that 2017 season.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, the Colts do feel like a team that could go 11-5, 12-4, or even beyond, just based on their solid defense, good O line, decent quarterback play, decent play calling. We'll see.
yeah, for sure. So obviously we skipped number 2, ended up coming back. So number 1, we ended up picking the New England Patriots. I know you had a couple of interesting things to say about their free agency. It just sounds like Bill Belichick does not want to experience what he experienced last year. I think he, in a way, and I think in a way, kind of felt embarrassed. I'm sure he was pretty salty that Tom Brady ended up winning the Super Bowl without him. They made a big old free agency splash. They signed Cam Newton again, which, I don't know, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, which were the top 2 tight ends in the free agency class, and they signed the big old contracts. They also signed Matt Judon from Baltimore, pass rushing specialist, Jalen Mills, who got burnt in Philly as a DB, Nelson Aguilar, not exactly a number 1 receiver, number 2 receiver. He's kind of like I think he, like, best case scenario, he's a really good slot receiver. But Kendrick Bourne, he was a slot receiver. They brought Trent Brown back from the Las Vegas Raiders. They made him take a pay cut or restructure his contract, and then they ended up bringing back Kyle Van Noy, who ended up signing a 4-year contract with the Miami Dolphins last year. Ended up getting cut after 1 year. Are the Patriots making the playoffs next year?
No, they're not making the playoffs next year.
Do you think that has a lot to do with Cam Newton being the quarterback? I mean, the wide receivers, man. Okay, so you got Jacoby Myers, N'Keal Harry. So Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar is going to put them over the top. I mean, it just kind of sounds like Bill Belichick's trying to adjust to this new age NFL where he's like, maybe I do need to spend money in free agency. I don't have Tom Brady and a supermodel wife. It's, I don't know. I know you had some special things to say about Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. What did you think about those two? I mean, they drafted 2 tight ends in the first round last year.
Yeah, for an organization that for so long people have given credit to the fact that they don't spend big money on free agents, the fact that they went out there and just threw money at two really good tight ends in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it seemed like their bigger issue was wide receiver. Maybe they're changing up their offense to cater it more towards Cam Newton's game, even though Cam Newton didn't really prove much down the stretch last season. He was terrible.
Yeah.
I just don't understand what the Patriots are doing here. I think their defense was okay. They had a strong start to the year, but and I know they had some guys opt out. I just do not believe in this team. I don't believe offensively in this team, especially. And I think their free agent signings are questionable at best.
Yeah.
I know the Patriots have a pretty strong fan base, so they're probably going to light me up on this video.
Right.
But, I mean, I think we might be entering into Bill Belichick insecurity era here, where he just saw Tom win a Super Bowl without him. He saw his team miss the playoffs for only the second time probably in like our lifetimes, to be honest. Props to them for the last 2 decades. It's the greatest dynasty in the history of the NFL. But I just don't see this team working out. I don't think this was a problem solver. I can see Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, their contract's not aging very well. And everyone has talked for years about the cap space that the Pats have had a few times, and I just think they just went about it all wrong. Is Belichick the one that's making all these moves? He's technically the GM, right?
Yeah. I think he literally took over the GM spot completely ever since Scott Pioli left, I think around 2008, because I know him and Scott Pioli were kind of splitting up the GM duties from I guess 2000 or 2001, I guess, up until 2008. But ever since 2008, Bill Belichick's been the main man. And I think this them not making the playoffs last year speaks volumes on how Bill Belichick's just not been drafting well. I think he's just been so used to having Tom Brady and plugging, like a Wes Welker or a Kyle Van Noy and plugging a bunch of no names and making it work. But you don't have Tom Brady anymore. You got Cam Newton, who can't get over his foot issue, shoulder issues. I don't. Yeah, just so I see the Bills in first place. Dolphins are probably in second. Dolphins.
Yeah.
Patriots probably third, and the Jets are probably going to be in last.
Or honestly, I think the Jets could finish third and the Pats could finish last. Call me crazy, but
Oh
I
my
just don't.
gosh.
I don't see this team doing well this year. I see a maximum of maybe 7 wins for the Pats. I just don't like this offense one bit. I think they're incredibly weak at almost every skill position except tight end. I think Sonny Michel just has been bad the last
Yeah.
year. It just, like you said, their drafting has been very, very questionable, especially the last couple of years. Even the last couple of years Tom was there, it wasn't like they were picking up these great skill position players and then plugging them in. Like Tom struggled a lot those last
Right.
couple of years, and there was a reason. And then we saw what he did in Tampa Bay the first year right off the bat, put all these weapons around him, and it's like it's 2010 to 2016 kind of prime Tom Brady, right? I say prime Tom Brady. He
Yeah.
was late 30s, early 40s by then. But
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
um,
really see anybody on the offensive side of the ball for the New England Patriots really making the Pro Bowl. I don't see Cam Newton go to the Pro Bowl. Jacoby Myers, N'Keal Harry, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. I don't really see any of these players really making the Sony Michel, James White. Maybe Jonnu Smith or Hunter Henry, one of those maybe, but it just kind of sounds like Bill Belichick got pretty desperate. As crazy as that sounds to say, but yeah, I just feel like they're kind of throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks.
I mean, we saw how well the Dolphins did under Brian Flores, and what
Yeah,
was that, his second year last year? Like
yeah,
they balled out, and
they did.
they weren't a competent offense. If you put a competent quarterback, or if Tua takes a step forward there, the Dolphins are a team that could win 12 games next year. I mean, and the Bills, we saw what they were last season. They're a team that can win 12, 13, maybe even 14 games next season. You're competing against those two teams in your division, and you've got the rest of the AFC that's looking pretty strong right now. I just don't see a path to the Patriots here. I think it's time to kind of give in and rebuild this thing. I think you should definitely keep Bill in there. He's the greatest coach of all time,
Yeah,
but it just feels like this isn't going to get better. Like Cam Newton is not your solution here at quarterback. We saw that last season.
right.
Through the first 3 games, every Pats fan in the world said, "Oh yeah, we told you Cam's back to MVP form." And then after that, what happened? I just don't see
Didn't
it
end up
working out.
working out, man. Well, that is our top 10 list. We ended up going all the way from the Kansas City Chiefs, all the way up to the Niners, to the Giants, Dak, Andy Dalton to the Bears, Cardinals, Tampa Bay, Carson Wentz going to the Colts, Jared Goff in the Stafford trade, and then with the New England Patriots with their crazy free agency moves. And I don't know. I think that's a pretty good stacked list. I don't know. Well, you got any bold predictions?
Bold predictions for this NFL season. Let me think about this one.
I think,
This is rough.
yeah, I think my only bold prediction I have is the whole NFC West gets into the playoffs.
I feel like I have to do an AFC prediction.
All right,
I think
just for the hatred, I have to put Raiders. What's their record going to be next year?
the
The
Raiders,
Raiders.
9-7. One thing that I
Really?
do have, the Chargers next year will go 12-4, and the Chiefs will finish 11-5. And I'm a Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bold prediction, but I think the
Wow.
Chargers. I think the Chargers could be the real. I love Herbert. I love what that team has done offensively, and I don't know. I have a good feeling about them.
You have the Chargers being the number one seed or the number one team in the.
Don't hold me to that.
Wow.
We'll see if the Chiefs' offensive line issues continue.
Yeah.
It's not going to be your typical 14 win team like it was last year. They really do have to fix those problems. But I mean, if they do, they're clearly probably the best team in the AFC, if not the best team in the NFL. But yeah, I like the direction the Chargers are heading. They probably won't win the division, but if they win 10, 11 games in that division, that's pretty good.
For sure, for sure. Well, it was how long was this? This was around I don't even know. Looks like, oh man, we got a whole hour in. That was awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you joining the show, man. Thanks for coming on. I know you got a pretty busy schedule, and I know you got a lot going on. A lot of things that I can't say online, but I know you got a lot going on. I really appreciate you coming on, and yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Always enjoy talking to you, and until next time.
For sure. Adios.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode of This Guy's Sports Talk.